Hiring people is a really good thing and glorifies God. But at the same time, sometimes we can sin in the process. Now, the Bible tells us in Luke 10, verse 7, that the laborer deserves his wages. Yet, we often hear from many socialists and Marxists that business owners exploit the poor through employment. And it claims that we undervalue people when we pay them a wage in exchange for their work, especially when we're making a profit. Yet, the passage in Luke implies that God approves of paying wages to employees. John the Baptist even told soldiers in Luke 3, verse 14, "Be content with your wages." A painter or a plumber or anyone who provides services earns money when they're hired by someone to perform a service. Many times, however, it requires the services of a group of people working together to produce a product. Examples of this are building airplanes, building cars, building computers. This group requires management, and it requires owners or investors to provide the opportunity to be employed. And this is an activity that's really actually human, uniquely human. God has given us the ability to do this like no other creature in creation. And we can glorify God in these relationships. There are numerous opportunities to glorify God in the employer-employee relationship, from both sides of the transaction. God is pleased with us when He sees us practice honesty and fairness and trustworthiness and wisdom and skill and kindness. He's pleased to see us keeping our promises. We have the opportunity to also honor God in the way that we practice our authority over others and the way that we respond to authority. We're imitating Him in the Trinity and the relationship and the interdependence that is given in the example in the Trinity. Everyone benefits from this activity because employees make money to provide for their household. The employer is also able to do that. And the vendors and the suppliers are provided for as well. When we buy their raw materials to produce these products. Customers are now better off because they benefit from the product that was produced. This is wealth creation. This fulfills the command of Genesis 1 verse 28 to subdue the earth and to make its resources useful for mankind. This is how manufacturing creates wealth. Services also make people's lives better than they would be otherwise, and that also glorifies God. Unfortunately, it has become more common that owners abuse their authority over employees with their sinful use of that authority. A common way that they do this is by underpaying employees, by keeping wages low that they're unable to improve, so low that they're unable to improve their standard of living. And that's going against what God commanded in Deuteronomy 24, verse 14. Or they may unreasonably withhold the payment to a vendor or to an employee, and that violates God's command in Leviticus 19, verse 13. When I was an employee, I experienced receiving this, being on the receiving end of this kind of thing, when I was unjustly fired from a position with no warning and had my medical insurance canceled immediately while my wife was in intensive care in the hospital. And I was told, it's not personal, it's just business. A big problem with business owners is pride. Pride in our power. We read in James 5, verse 4, it says, "Look, the wages you failed to pay the workers who mowed your fields are crying out against you. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord Almighty." James 5, verse 4 there. At the same time, employees are often careless in their work. Proverbs 18, verse 9 tells us, and I quote, "One who is slack in his work is brother to one who destroys," unquote. Employees can be lazy. They can be bitter with jealousy. They can be rebellious. And sometimes they even steal from their employer. In Titus 2, verses 9 and 10, it tells us that employees should be respectful and honest in their dealings and prove that they are trustworthy. Well, it isn't that employment is bad. It's the abuse of the relationships in the employment transaction that can be bad because of our sin. We corrupt the employment relationship when we commit sins against each other. But when we seek to honor God in these relationships and seek to love those in these relationships, we can glorify God. Are you glorifying God in your employment relationships?